Hello and welcome to Wait, It Gets Better, the improvisational storytelling podcast, where every week a few friends get together with our harebrained ideas, our mad scientist vibes, and our utterly and completely inspired works of art. We combine them together to turn into a story that is going to be written on obsidian tablets and sent to every known world that can inhabit life. I'm, of course, Levi.
I'm Reed.
And I'm Seth.
And we are here to tell you a story. What story elements did you guys have?
I've got Villians sidekick.
I have hero.
I have unique weapon, I think.
I had written down beginning scene, but
That is correct. I was thinking of a different unique weapon that I had a really good idea today for a unique weapon, and I got myself crossed. But Seth, were you going to do the recap for us?
Yeah, I'll do
This
the
is a
recap real quick.
this is a continuation of last week's episode, Powers of Belief. I believe is that's the episode.
Yep, I think
Great.
that's what the name on it was. All right, so I'll jump right into this. So I think the setting is a world, let's say, much like ours, I would think.
Yes.
And we have kind of a prophecy, which the way that this works is it's like a saying that's been just kind of gone through the ages that like everybody knows about, and it's just kind of that thing that it's kind of ingrained. It's not tied to any, let's say, religious order or sect or anything, say, seemingly diabolical like some religious sect.
Yeah.
Them diabolical Baptists. But it's just like one of those things like being afraid of the dark or afraid of spiders or snakes, something that, you know, everybody kind of has an innate realization of, and it's just like something that everybody says, and it's just kind of ingrained,
Right.
and everybody knows this.
Right.
And I believe the prophecy went when peril looms from the utter north, look to the sky. And that was our prophecy that we started out with. And as we progressed, we put in another little bit that was something that was also kind of forgotten to time, but the second part of it would also then go when fire blooms. I believe it was run for your life.
Yeah.
Am I getting that right?
Yes, you are getting that right. Right, Reed, you have
Okay.
it written down.
yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, so that was kind of our build-up prophecy that we got going on here. Now, the other story elements from last week is I had anti-hero and Levi had wise old man.
Correct.
Levi's wise old man is Theodore, I believe, and he's kind of a kooky, eccentric old guy. I mean, if there was something on, you know, chakra crystals, he has those. He's got the books on, you know, Tai Chi and yoga and, you know, clairvoyance and, you know, everything that's kind of out there. He's kind of a fanatic about all that, you know, kind of stuff. And he kind of fancies himself a magician, but, you know, and some of it works some of the time and some of it just doesn't. I think in some of the stuff he walks around, he's like in like druid robes and like rune stones and all kinds of stuff. Like if it's something that has to do with that, he's got it and he's researched it and has it somewhere, and it's a big part of his kind of personality.
Yeah.
And the anti-hero is a guy by the name of Aaron, and he actually is someone that was brought here by, as it would seem, a kind of a backstabbing magician or friend from the world that he comes from. In the world that he comes from, he was set up as being the prophesied like Messiah, kind of the prime mage that had like greater power than everyone, that was gonna defeat the, you know, the demon lord or whatever it is.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
the big bad guy of that world. And on the eve of the deciding battle, that, you know, it was all the build up that he would have had to be there to save his world.
He gets sent away.
He gets sent away to this world. And so it kind of is like a big stab in the back, like his right-hand guy, the guy that brought him all along and encouraged him to kind of be this Messiah figure, kind of stabbed him in the back. So when he gets here, he's got some magical ability, but it's not the thing is like kind of like Theodore's got all these books and all this stuff, and this will kind of play into my hero that I've got too. But like it's not, it doesn't. It's from a different world. I mean, even in this world, I guess not that it doesn't follow the same rules. It's just that the world that he comes from is either farther along in this thought process that allows some of this magic to happen, or is kind of behind where we are at. Either one, I don't think it really matters at this point unless we want to make it a better point. But anyway, so he has been brought to this world, and he is kind of reclused himself. He's got some correspondence with Theodore, who's fascinated with him. And he's been in our world, or this world, for the last 16 years and is pretty leery about, let's say, using anything that he still has an ability for.
Didn't we determine that somehow? I thought we determined that this was like a belief-based magic system.
Yes, so it's a belief-based magic system, and so it's not like it follows anything that we know, like let's say on our understanding of, like, if you align your chakras or do this mantra chant, or like anything that we would conceive. It's simply like just simply is, and kind of based on like a belief. So in the world that Aaron comes from, everybody believes magic to be true and work, and so it innately does. And that's kind of
Right.
what we have, but we kind of function on, I think, kind of more the idea that there has to be like extra rituals or extra other things to perform magic,
Right.
which
Right.
all in all isn't really, it doesn't always like pan out. And I think that's kind of what I'll get into with my hero.
Okay.
And that kind of, all of that kind of then sets him up. So anyways, with Aaron though, he is very leery about getting involved in anything, let's say, greater than himself. And so he, even though he has, let's say, some limited powers here, and let's say could have a great means of doing, much more than any of us could fathom, he kind of has reclused himself to kind of being a hermit for the last, 10 to 15 years of being here, just because he doesn't really want to get burned out. So he's really reluctant to, step into, like I said, anything bigger than himself. And I think that kind of wraps up last week's episode, which then will bring me into the hero, whose name is Lucas. And when he was, let's see, I think it was thinking 5. When he was 5,
which world is he from? First off,
okay, he is from this world, the world that this is all happening in, not Aaron's
we'll say
world, Earth. So he's from Earth. So when he was 5, he was staying in the hospital with his mother, and his mother was very sick and dying, and kind of in the middle of the night he was awoken to kind of a scuffle, and then kind of how sometimes hospitals have that like dividing thing,
the curtains between
that curtain
patients
kind of divided between the patients, and like something, like there was a noise and a bright light behind like the curtain separator, and he went to go check it out, and there was a guy there. This guy was like all dressed up. It was like a druid. So kind of a spoiler, this guy is Theodore. There was no one really on that side, but Theodore's pretty kind of raggle, if this is all right, because it'll kind of play into something that I think we talked about. So anyway, so I think so it's Theodore, and he's kind of beat up a little bit, and he's kind of ragged, but he's got his whole druid outfit on, and it's not like druid like our druid, but that's about kind of the idea, the closest kind of the way that it looks.
Right.
And he kind of stumbles up, and he's like kind of disorientated, and talks to the kid for a second, and kind of looks over, and he sees the kid's mom, and he kind of looks her over, and he ends up healing her, which this sets our hero Lucas almost on the same kind of path that Theodore is, with this fascination of magic and the things of that nature. And so this was, years ago. This was, well, I don't know, like 10 years probably before Aaron had come, and so it's been like about 26 years from this point. And this whole time, Lucas has been on a kind of a mission, and almost on the same kind of lines that Theodore has, and maybe he's refound Theodore and is kind of apprenticed under him. Although Theodore himself doesn't really have much for power anymore, but he's probably the closest thing to what Lucas is looking for, and kind of like all
Right.
growing up. And Lucas, he went to church, and he went to the different, all the different things. Same thing like Theodore, looking into all these things because he's seen this amazing thing happen. I mean, this guy pretty much got appeared out of nowhere, which then come to find out, it's because I think Theodore is actually Aaron's father and was sent to this world, like 10 years before Aaron was. But however, shortly after coming here, knowing that no one really believes in the same, let's say, base magic system that he performs, he has very little
Power at all.
Power at all. Where at first, and like the little bit that they have, like there's that very tight-knit circle, and maybe they don't have it figured out because they just think like, well, where I came from, you just did magic. It just was. You just, made it happen, right? And so maybe they don't quite connect the idea that there has to be the
or they do know what it is, and at first it works flawlessly because they themselves have complete faith in it. But then as they're away from the sort of reality of it for long enough, maybe it messes up like one time, and then they lose a little bit of faith in it, and so it gets a little bit less. And then it messes up again over here, and then soon, after a couple of weeks, it's just like it doesn't work anymore, And they remember when it did work, but enough seeds of doubt have been placed in their minds that they themselves can't sort of carry it over anymore. It requires everyone to do that, which is one of the reasons why maybe Aaron is sort of more a hermit, is because he's sort of keeping himself away from science and the convenience of science, because it explains away things of the universe and therefore makes him basically trust in his magic less.
Yeah, that could work. Yeah.
Sorry.
So anyways, that's, I think that eventually as he grows up, Lucas eventually finds, and maybe he doesn't connect that he's the same guy. Maybe he does. But he's apprenticed kind of underneath of Theodore. And, he's very, let's say, high-minded, idealistic. He wants to gain this power and do great good, because that's what's kind of was so ingrained in his mind as a kid.
Right.
So that, that is...
that's the hero. Great. Should I do the beginning scene, or Reed, do you want to do yours first?
Go ahead and do the beginning scene.
The beginning scene happens on Titan, a moon of Jupiter.
Yeah,
is it Saturn? Or is it
I think
Saturn?
It's Jupiter.
I'm just going to look it up real fast. Titan, moon of Saturn. It's the largest moon of Saturn.
Okay. I was right.
In this place, in this age of Earth, we have begun to sort of send out missions to various moons and planets and places that we can begin to sort of estimate their value, explore them. The beginning scene happens there. There's a research station high enough up that past the sort of the gas clouds in the atmosphere that they can see out, and it's kind of the short-range burst station. It does a lot of sort of people send messages to it, and then it sends messages out. But there is, her name is Cynthia. She's sitting at one of the desks, kind of twiddling her thumbs, because every time the light turns green, which means the message is incoming, she pushes the red button, and it saves all the messages, and they know that someone is still at the helm. So even though she's like, around Saturn, and lots of people would kill for her job, and she in fact would kill for her job, it's a pretty boring job.
Well, I suppose there's time lapses between messages sent and messages received. So.
Yeah. People always have to be on, because one of the things that Earth wants to make sure is that everything's okay. And instead of sort of live streaming all of their vitals back to Earth, what they do is they just send, informational messages, whether it be sort of analytics reports and stuff like that. And part of that message transfer is she just has to push a button. Can't be automated. She just has to push a button that says, "Sounds good. We still have power. We are still alive."
Yeah.
Right? Anyways, she's sitting there twiddling her pencil in one hand, reading a book. It's a book, it's one of the prophecy books, Dozens of people have written them. This is one of her favorites. It's her grandfather's book. And he was sort of an earlier proponent of the Halley's Comet theory, that there was kind of something in our solar system that was kind of circling around, right? And every once in a while, it left such a huge impact on people that they created this prophecy.
Okay.
Right? And she's reading it, and it's marked up. She's read it dozens of times. But she's reading it, and she's getting to the place where it's sort of going through the words again. Can you read it to me again?
When peril looms from the utter north, look to the sky. When fires bloom, run for your lives.
And she hears a beep, and she hears those all the time, right? Those are low-flying meteors and things, right?
Right.
But this one is sustained for longer than it should, right? It's sustained for like a whole second, which indicates its sort of size and presence. And she quickly throws her book down.
Would it also mean flying toward rather than flying by?
Could be flying towards or flying by. She throws her book down. She punches in the computer and pulls up like a viso screen, like a holographic image, and everything looks okay. It's just a calm, peaceful night. But then she remembers it's not night. They're currently in their day cycle. So she rushes past, doesn't push the alarm in her haste, doesn't push the "we need help" from her responder in her haste, runs up to the giant glass dome and watches as a comet the size of, I don't know, South America comes flying by. And as parts of it enter the atmosphere breaks off parts of it. And as they enter into the atmosphere, they seem to light on fire.
Ooh.
The atmosphere of Titan, right?
Titan, yes. Okay. And it rains down. And the last thing she thinks of before the rock the size of several city blocks takes out the lookout station she's on is, "When fire comes from the skies, run for your lives." That's the beginning scene.
Okay. So people back on Earth just have the...
Well, they don't receive it immediately.
Right. Because they didn't send the Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. Right. All they know is that just stopped.
Right. So there's it's all up in the news now that, the Titan station has went offline.
Yeah.
Right. And they're not sure because Titan is also a penal colony. So they're not sure if it's another penal uprising like what happened on the moon a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Or if it's something else. So Congress is all up in arms debating about whether or not they should send warships or whether or not they should send a faster exploratory ship.
It is now even though the comm center has been destroyed.
Yeah.
Is there still like the guys that are working the?
No, this is the relay center. All the smaller things send messages to the relay center, and the relay center is the one with the power to send it back to Earth.
But there's still activity going on in Titan, the mining and the other things.
I imagine there's some.
Yeah.
I mean, a giant meteor has like kind of destroyed a lot of it, but I imagine there's some they're probably all cut off from
Right.
each other, and who knows how long they'll survive.
Yeah,
You know,
how self-sustaining are they?
anyone
all that.
else who was out in the system sort of relying on the relay station for interconnected communication is going to be basically lost, because it's like, imagine, radio tower / lighthouse,
Right.
So Congress is up in arms now talking about whether or not to send, like I said, warships or a faster exploratory ship,
Right.
So that, my thoughts is that prophecy is a sort of it's a sort of thing that happens every couple hundred years, or every couple thousand years, or once every 1,000 years is like enough time, even.
Yeah.
Where it just kind of comes by, because we've had lots of extinction events on Earth.
Right.
Like they've found huge craters everywhere. We've had like multiple extinction events.
Right.
So it just kind of comes by and just kind of wipes the planet clean. And it's not an evil force. I don't think it's the villain.
Right.
But it's just a thing that happens.
So this thing's cruised past Titan, and is it heading toward Earth?
Well, that's the kind of idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I imagine the kind of way it would go is that the beginning scene would set up the prophecy, and then the ridiculousness of it, and how everyone knows about it, and how no one knows what it means, and then his theory, and Michelle, is that what I called her? Cynthia would kind of Michelle was her mom.
Okay.
Cynthia would kind of give the readers a little bit of background as to like why she is out in space, is because like her grandfather believed this, and like she was really wrapped up in that, and blah 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 blah. And and I don't mean to be mean to Cynthia and have her die, but the idea is that people have pretty much fallen. People have decided that it means nothing, and therefore it means nothing. But the reality is that things mean things even if you don't think they do, And it's best to pay attention to what happens when old people speak about times long past, because guess what? You might be living in those later on.
Like the old story, what Chicken Little had to say, the sky is falling, was
Right.
dismissed because Chicken Little wasn't a very impressive individual.
Right.
But what if the sky is falling?
Exactly. And in this case, the sky will be falling in about 1 to 5 years.
So who now has anybody else figured this out yet? I mean, this is still all a matter of speculation, and there's talk about, well, let's send an exploratory group. Let's get somebody up there to see what's going on.
Okay, so I have an idea on the comet. So
okay, let's hear it.
Comet is the bad guy that, maybe not literally the bad guy, but like an energy force or some kind of thing. So with Aaron not being on this other world, I don't know how you want to look at it, like the demon lord, or the ultimate bad guy that world.
Yeah.
Won.
The big bad guy.
The big bad guy of that world won, and then harnessed all of like the energy and the power of that world to basically either send himself to like follow wherever Aaron was sent. So obviously like that was his arch nemesis, or basically like send like a plasma missile.
Yeah, like a bunch of
destruction.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the two. I think that, might be something. If we want to leave, let's say, the people as a character out, it could just be like a great, let's say, magical, as it would seem, missile to follow where he went and, destroy him once and for all, so he can't come back and defeat him.
Yeah, it could be something kind of like the hate manifestation of his enemy. Like the same way that belief equals power, the more people who believe in a certain way equals that thing being more true. In the same way, the enemy's hate or the enemy's disgust or the enemy's wanting to get revenge on Aaron is so powerful that he can sort of send it into another world. I don't super like that, only because the prophecy has already been, it's already a thing that's happened. I was thinking it could be something like this same thing happens, because we're talking about a parallel universe, so this same thing happens to Aaron's world as well, right? But the first time it happened, this is what brought about the magic system.
Yeah.
Right? Something was introduced to the earth that changed them. And then they developed that. And then the next time it came, they were able to stop it. And so it didn't destroy them, you know? And so one of the things that Aaron is doing is going around trying to find these pieces from when it destroyed the earth last time.
Yeah.
Right? Trying to find these stones. Maybe they're really susceptible to the magic. Maybe they are what caused some of this magic to start to happen. You know, it's something like that. It's like a forced evolution in one way that basically makes this type of belief magic real. And so he is just trying to gather enough of it. You know, maybe his kind of long-term goals are to like start a cult and then feed everyone this thing, and then, you know, he according to his math, he'll need 1,500 people who all believe in him in order to send him back.
Okay.
You know, and it's like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something that'd be semi anti-hero-ish. It's not going to kill them.
Yeah.
But it's pretty selfish still, you know. And maybe Theodore finds out about this, and then what's the hero's name? Lucas finds out about this, and they try to start using, because there has to be some place in which the rise to power happens. You know,
right.
It happens in all books with people who have magical abilities. You know, something happens, people realize they have power, and then it's just kind of like a steady uphill fight until confrontation time.
Yeah.
You know,
and
I'm trying to create the place, because if it's a belief-based magic, that means, what does Lucas have to start doing? Does he have to start live streaming and get a big online following, and so everyone starts to believe in Theodore? You know, does he have to, maybe he's like an apprentice doctor? I'm
wondering, like, on, you know, Theodore and Aaron's world, you know, has this magic thing going on.
Right.
And I think Lucas realizes that, you see, as the you know, I want to say as the telemetry comes in, no, as they become aware of the fact that this comet is headed to Earth.
Right.
And there's going to be consequences. And there's like one of the ideas that Lucas is thinking of is like, well, I've got to get together with Theodore, and we've got to transition to the magic world.
Yeah.
Because only there will they have the faith to turn the comet, so to speak.
Right.
I mean, it's coming in all realities or
now,
worlds.
Now,
right?
on
the idea?
Yeah, and the other side of this is Rudy. Rudy is the villain's sidekick. Well, he's not really the villain's sidekick, but because the villain is this destructive force, I started, the first thing I wrote down about Rudy, I said, Rudy is bored.
Okay.
This is prior to the beginning scene, right?
Yeah.
Rudy's bored, and he's looking for excitement. And Rudy's kind of an affable guy, you know, like quick with the joke, light up your smoke, you know, that kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he's ready to jump on the action train. And
action for action's sake.
Yeah. And he's got a big red beard. He's a big rough bear of a man, but he's not just muscle. His cunning and quick, and he's really sharp dealing is what he aspires to. Like, he likes to say, you know, I've got an eye for sly. He's a grifter type. He's looking for marks to take advantage of, and he's got there's kind of an ethics about it, you know, if you can use that word in a bastardized way. You know, there's nothing ethical about his approach to anything. It's all expediency, and he's thinking, okay, how to cash in, how
Right.
to be set up when
Right.
when the comet comes and does its thing. Who's going to be in position to take advantage and take control of the chaos that's, you have the road warrior kind of image where you have
Right.
the
Right.
guy that's got control of the water, the evil guy with his harem and and then
Yeah,
you got
yeah,
the
yeah.
hero, drives the tanker, you know what I'm saying? This is the bad guy that's like all that's evil and wrong. He is intending to take advantage of, and he
Yeah.
does not want. I don't know. I don't know if he gets wind. Maybe he gets wind of what that this Theodore and Aaron, and what they're about, and he's going to want to forestall that because he's got plans. So that's kind of how.
So basically, he is just like an agent of chaos and all of
Right,
this.
right.
So we've decided that the comet is in fact the villain.
Yeah, well, I'll go with that.
Okay. I like the idea of like a good guy and a bad guy, and then some third kind of unavoidable, terrible chaos that's coming that you just like can't. It's like this is gonna happen regardless, but one of us is gonna be on top before it does. Not to say that the story will end with everyone dying, but I kind of like the idea of maybe he is sort of going around kind of getting people to put down payments on like underground shelters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just kind of
Underground shelters with an oceanfront view.
Yeah. There you go.
yeah, just kind of, putting
On a timeshare, of course.
Yeah, timeshare. That's good. That's a good
30
touch.
people to a room. It'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I kind of have that picture of him is just kind of like a general sower of chaos who's like, well, if it's time to go, I guess I'm going to see how many dollar bills I can have stacked up before we do.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea of, maybe the government has tried to fire a couple of nukes at this thing, but they're still like 6 months out.
Like Armageddon style.
Yeah, so like the whole world won't be destroyed, just like
Yeah.
some of it.
Yeah.
And like panic is starting to kind of mount, but in kind of like a weird way because there's like all these different theories. The moon might come right in the way and it might all land on the moon,
Yeah.
or it might just miss us. It might not,
Yeah.
but like no scientist is willing to go on Joe Rogan's podcast and say that it will or will not miss us.
Right.
They're all just saying it could.
Yeah, and like there's talk like, well, have the efforts so far nudged it enough out of its course so that we're going to survive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like a scientist who like Sunday night is talking about how they've done a lot of good work to nudge it out, but then Monday night they found him like drunk downtown San Francisco screaming about the end of the world, and they're like,
yeah. Having taken out a giant loan and like spent it on hookers and liquor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just
copious amounts of cocaine.
Just like the general discord and chaos that comes with the kind of it's not even the assurance of sure destruction. What I can see here is that maybe the comet isn't the villain. Maybe the villain is this big bad guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he and Ka saw fit to send Aaron over to this other world because he was created. He was not created, but he was destined to be a unifying force against a terrible reality.
So I have
right.
a little bit of a sideways idea to
let's hear it.
Here. It's partly how either Theodore or Aaron kind of regain some power, maybe after having failed trying to make like a separate little weird cult.
Yeah.
The realization that the doom of the world is imminent is like during the Christmas season.
Okay.
I just
Perfect.
had this thought where like the world is falling apart, and like because I always thought of this because of my personal thought of the extra added stress of Christmas being like just more than it has to be, and then that Christmas song playing in the background. It's the most wonderful time.
Yeah.
And it's just it's not though. It's just terrible okay, not that
For
some
you.
people don't. For me, I just find it ironic that it's the most wonderful time, and especially where we're at, it's normally like 30 below zero and
Yeah.
miserable, and everybody is like killing each other to get like the Xbox 18 X1 Generation 5 or whatever, or like the new Yeti cooler that
Okay.
is super cool, and they're trampling each other over it. Just
Yeah.
wonderful time of the year. So I
Yeah.
just like putting that image in with the doom of the world as like cheery Christmas music is going on, but which plays into
Bah hung
the
bah.
real harebrained idea of what I was thinking is the way that they regain their power is for one of them to I don't know what the word would be, but present himself not as like a street Santa, but as Santa himself. I mean, how many little boys and girls
Okay.
around the world believe in Santa Claus?
Right. Right.
So it's like sidestepping how to get people to believe that they can do basically whatever they want,
Oh my
right?
gosh, Seth, I'll do you one better. How about they both know that Santa Claus is real? He comes from their world,
Oh yeah.
right? And he has a secret stash of books and power and a whole laboratory somewhere, right?
The North Pole.
And so they have to basically pretend to be him to like unlock all of the steps to get back.
Or he
It's
was
like,
real and he like died years ago.
yeah, he did. Yeah. He traveled over here at some point and for a while survived on the faith and joy of children, and then has since died. And so they find his sled and they're like, okay, this will transport us back to his lair. We just need to basically pretend to be Santa long enough in order to power it up. Because, like, we can touch it and we can feel that it's made of this certain wood that is, like, infused with our magic.
You remember like from like the 60s.
But it won't work for them. It only will work for what's his name?
For
Because he's from
Lucas?
for Lucas, because he's from this world.
Oh yeah.
I was thinking that, or that Lucas basically is a okay, two things. Either Lucas is like a super believer, right? And can provide for them, like he believes in them so completely that it provides the power that they need. Or Lucas is like volunteers at the same hospital where his mom was at, right? And he has there's all these kids and he begins to tell them the stories about how he knows Santa Claus and how he is kind of going along on this trip to save the world, because all these children, they just see doom and gloom all the time, and he's trying to distract them away. And so he creates this whole persona and basically includes enough of Aaron and Theodore's personality in it to basically have this entire hospital wing of children all believe in them enough that they start to manifest their powers again.
Cool.
And then, sorry, Seth, I totally jumped in there with your whole Santa Claus thing.
No, I just thought that would be like, that's fine. I like it went where it went. I just thought that would be one of the ways, because it's a belief thing.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
All kinds of kids all over the world believe in Santa, and so basically, if they can, sidestep into that role, someone,
Yeah, absolutely.
it would basically sidestep them into having magical power because of the innocent belief of the children. And for all these years now, parents have had to tell their kids that Santa doesn't exist at some point because, obviously he hasn't shown up for the last couple hundred years.
Right, right.
I remember when the movie The Time Machine came out, like back in the 60s. I was
Yeah.
a pretty young kid. And I always thought that the Time Machine kind of looked like Santa's sleigh. Anyway, that's just a complete aside. Sorry. But like Santa's sleigh has got these magical properties, of course, right? Because how could you carry enough toys for all the children of the world?
Right. No, of course. It's not the sleigh, it's the bag. The bag is
the
bag can hold it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm almost
he borrowed
positive,
it from Merlin. It was the hockety pockety bag.
Sure. I'm
Yeah.
almost positive it was like a direct portal back to the workshop
Mm-hmm.
so that the elves could continue working on things. There's some time dilation issues, but that's fine. So they get enough quote unquote followers. Maybe they get enough sort of followers really in this hospital wing that they're able to take the sleigh and then transport it to the what's it called? To the Santa Claus's laboratory, like
Yeah.
his workshop.
Yeah.
And it's not, who knows? It's in Antarctica. It's in the North Pole. I don't care. But it's somewhere cold where there's snow, right? And there's all of Santa's automatons,
Right.
that are now coming back to life all of a sudden. And then they get a giant lore dump about, what's been going on, who this Santa Claus is actually, what he's actually been doing, how he protected the world from these threats, including this guy that Aaron, maybe Aaron is in the line of Claus,
Oh yeah.
right? So it's like his great grandfather back 5 times or something, you know? And it's like, I protected the world from this threat before, and now I've come to this world where they have no power. Maybe they've given over to science or whatever reason he has that they don't have the power anymore, and we are going to, this is the things I've laid out for how to protect the world when this giant catastrophe comes. And I don't know.
Okay, and maybe that is why where Theodore came from to begin with, and maybe the jump over, they lose some of the. No, they wouldn't lose their memory, but maybe that's why he was sent over. Maybe in their line in the original world as like the archmages of that world, when they retire there, they come here to be Santa Claus. The only thing is maybe something got messed up that they don't really get sent to the lair. So for the past like 200 years, right, 300 years, they've been being sent all over the world, and so now they've been like these weird, like kooks of the world, that like Theodore, who's been trying to find like where the access to power here is, because like, okay, I retired now, like this is where I got to come, and like almost like a second mission. Like now I'm done here, it's passed on to the next guy, and now I've got to come here and take over for the mage that is now retiring from here and is either dying or moving on to the next place.
Right. But he
and
came,
they just
and
have
there was
never
nothing
known
there.
that. Yeah, and they've not known that for the last 200 years, 300 years, that something has been like altered, and so the last, I don't know, like 2 or 3 clauses that have come here to be Santa as like the the hero of children and the protector of the world, or however it is, from this thing, they've just kind of dissipated into society in large as being kind of like weird, kooky people who think that they're wizards or something.
I mean, there's plenty of people who believe that, so it's not that strange that some people who might actually be wizards are among them, sent here from other worlds. They're supposed to be Santa Claus. Gosh, I love that this story has turned into Santa Claus. That's really good.
Yeah.
Now the question is when they retire from being Santa Claus, perhaps like the last Santa Claus, his like great grandfather or something, is on whatever next world that it is, like getting old, and like he should have retired like 200 years ago, but he's like hanging
Just
on
been
because
waiting.
no one has come to replace him.
Right.
Almost like it's like a chain or something.
Yeah, so maybe like the entire solar system is screwed up in some way. Or like that's one of the reasons why people have had to rely on science in this world, is because there's been no sort of generational, like, where are the teachers at? They're all gone. They stopped coming, basically. That's kind of an interesting thought. I kind of like that. And on this opposite side, you have this big bad guy, who was kind of defeated. It could be kind of something like something a bit like Purgatory, where like you start out on the top and you just kind of make your way down, right?
Okay, well, having not been to Purgatory, I'm not sure what you mean, but I can.
Maybe this isn't
I was there last week.
Yeah, maybe this isn't how Purgatory is, but maybe it would be something like this. There's like 100 worlds in a stack.
Okay.
Right? And the idea is that you sort of rise to a place in the first one and then travel to the second one and rise to a place, and and sort of descend down or descend up or ascend, right?
Right.
And making the world that you just left better before you leave it, right?
Okay.
And once an entire stack has been redeemed, it sort of moves on to a better place. Not like heaven, but like enters into like a golden age, or like some great breakthrough happens.
Okay.
You know, these are like entire worlds, I'm talking like entire realities. But the enemy is trying to do the same thing, because if he can corrupt an entire stack, then he gets to sort of pull that towards himself and sort of bolster his own power, you know? So it's like this sort of super cosmic fight between good and evil, that what's supposed to happen is people are supposed to rise from the place they were in and go into the next one and go into the next one and go. And Aaron didn't know that. He thought he was just going to be the Messiah of this one and then be done. But he didn't know that, like, he was basically going to be done here and then go to the next one and then go to the next one and go, you know, and basically try to redeem this whole stack of parallel universes, which you can travel in between. And so the enemy found a way to shunt Aaron away, and then also followed him over because he has successfully won in the world that Aaron was from. So he moved over. Typically what happens is a wizard gets really powerful and does the best he can do in that world, and then comes into ours and is Santa Claus or Father Time or the Tooth Fairy, right? Or a philanthropist or something like that. And then once he's done the greatest he can do, he goes on to the next one. Like, he's done his job to sort of redeem this world. Now, gosh, I'm pulling this all just completely off of the dome right now. Now, this bad archlich, demon lord, whatever, has corrupted the world below, where Aaron and Theodore were from. He's now moved up. So he's like, this is a perfect opportunity. There is some chaos coming. If I can get everyone to despair completely,
Yeah.
I can leave this world right in ruins
And go on to the next.
Yeah, and go on to the next one. So the goal is for Lucas, Theodore, and Aaron to do a twofold plan. One part, save the world. One part, save the world and give them hope, right? Make them feel saved.
Yeah.
You know, it might be enough just to save the world, but there's always people who are going to despair. And this problem looks pretty unavoidable, you know. We're not going to be able to stop all of the rockets, is what is now the front line, the headline of all newspapers. We're not going to be able to stop all of the meteors.
Right.
You know, they've started to pick out these parts of the countries are going to be completely gone. You know, giant gridlocks as people are traveling across. You know, what's his name? The villain sidekick.
Rudy
is loving it, right?
Yeah.
It's turning into the world that he is most comfortable in, one that's ruled by chaos.
Right.
You
And
know?
he's busy looting where
Yeah.
People have panicked.
Yeah, or gathering up giant gangs of people who don't care if they die.
Yeah.
You know, who are like, well, we're all going to die sometime, you know? And inside of all of it is this creature whispering in people's ears the sad desperation, you know?
Mhm.
And in all of it is Lucas, Aaron, and Theodore trying to find some way to both give people back faith and save them. You know, you can give people back faith, but if you give people back faith by lying to them, it's false. It doesn't work. It doesn't give
Right.
you power. You have to give people back hope enough by actually being able to save them, you
There
know?
you go.
Also, you know, front news headlines, first landfall of meteors will be on December 25th. You know.
Yeah. Sure.
Um
It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas.
the most wonderful time of the year.
Looking like a big blizzard this week. It's great.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we're getting. So do you guys want to continue this on? I feel like we're just about to wrap it up. We don't need to go another week on this.
Oh, no.
We can definitely drive it home, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how much of a Hallmark movie do we want to make this? Do we want people outside singing Silent Night to give them power?
Yeah.
You know, maybe they find out that the sleigh, right, can bend time, right? So they can basically be all around the world in 6 hours, right? Which is enough time and power that so they basically strategically choose where to defend first. And they defend this place first, and that bolsters their power a little bit. And then they defend this place over here, and that bolsters their power a little bit. And then they defend this thing over here.
Yeah.
You know?
And they're just willing these meteors off on glancing off the atmosphere and
Yeah, maybe creating giant domes, doing lots of different weird power things. But, this thing is going to stop. I mean, it's going to move past Earth, and it's going to come within close enough that Earth's gravitational force is going to basically just pull off giant chunks.
Right.
So the huge mass isn't going to hit Earth.
Right.
But it's going to pull off these giant chunks as it comes past and basically just pummel Earth.
Right.
They can't do all of it. Maybe they find Lenny. Lenny? Is that the name of the
Rudy is the
Rudy.
Is
They find Rudy and they try to convince him, right? But he won't be convinced. Right? He prefer to live in a world, I don't know how they confront the villain, whether it's a giant fight in the air, whether it's just kind of like, you can't touch me and I can't touch you. All we can do is affect these people around us.
Okay, so in the kind of like moving on, I'm kind of thinking like almost like where some of like it's, I don't know, like ancient symbols might come from, the yin yang kind of thing, where it's like the white is big on one end but not so big on the other.
Right.
So it's like as the one moves on, the other one is always moving behind it. And perhaps here, because of whatever shift, everything is being kind of caught. And I'm thinking maybe like throughout the night, so they've got time dilation, they're flying about, the two of them are in the thing, they're like taking pot shots off at the different meteors jumping around the world. Everyone is seeing them, like everyone's like finally realizing Santa is real, like in the little Hallmark movies where like once everybody believes in Santa's sleigh really takes off and they get seen over, flying over, wherever. Like all around the world, more and more people are realizing that like Santa is here, and like they're seeing him all over the world. So now the belief that, where someone like, well, I mean, maybe he is, but maybe he can't be all over the world at once, right? And so they're zipping around, they're knocking the meteors off, and just doing their heroics, making a scene. Eventually, they divert that catastrophe, like the faith in that all around the world, and like the Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, all around the world, everyone has gotten up. I mean, here the end of the world was going to be, nigh, and everyone has witnessed basically Santa and his little helper, whichever one that ends up being in the sleigh, fight off, the great catastrophe, and all in the process, of course, as Santa does, leaving presents for good girls and boys. So a bit of Christmas magic, and so faith in that has been revived. And at the end of that, Theodore moves on to the next world.
Right.
And in a twist of fate, what's his name? So then Theodore moves on to the next world, where the bad guy, or the evil presence that has kind of come along with this, has also moved on to the next world, but not as powerful because he was defeated here. So
kind of counted as a loss and just moved on.
Right. So he's moved on, and this world has been put back to stable order. And in the twist of fate, Rudy is actually sent back. And maybe that's like a deal that he made or something with the villain.
Wait, sent back one world?
Sent back one world. Where maybe the villain himself would have been sent back that one world. Giving, let's say, the next people in line, the next world in line, a greater power against him when he tries to move again. However, maybe he's able to trick Rudy into taking
his place or something.
His place, knowing he's defeated, he kind of gets Rudy to think that he's kind of really it. Maybe it's really him. He's I don't know, maybe slightly schizophrenic or something, and thinks that this voice is actually him, and
Right.
and
Right.
somehow he gets kicked back to the next world, and kind of a weird thing. All the people of that world are waiting for Aaron to return after
Right.
being defeated, and like, well, he left, and he'll be back. He'll come in the skies. When peril
And they-
looms,
Yeah.
we
And
will
then
look
they
to the
get Rudy.
sky, and like how it'll turn out or not. But Rudy is the one that ends up being
Yeah.
sent back to
Yeah.
the
Oh, man.
world back in the
So kind
the
of
cycle.
not a sad ending, but definitely not like a happy ending.
Well, I mean, it's happy
It's
here.
a mixed. Yeah, it's a mixed ending.
Right, and it's kind of like a wild card in the world before, and like the step before, because
Yeah.
could Rudy, let's say, take this upon himself and become the great hero that he, let's say, could be? Because
Right.
maybe he's charismatic and he's garners an amount of power, so it could be a twist of fate, or he could then basically become a next time villain that will then be the villain that then rises to come back to Earth later once he's garnered enough despair here now, because it's already ripe for
Yeah.
that. So he
Right.
could be the villain that comes back later, but he's got to almost prove himself here. But that's kind of the cliffhanger it leaves on. But it leaves on like a happy note here on Earth, as Aaron is reinstituted as Santa Claus. Theodore moves on to be the head druid wizard or whatever it is of the next world in the cycle that has been longly awaiting
Yeah.
that to keep moving on. And what is it?
Lucas.
Lucas is a doctor then, and it's not that he has like supreme magical powers, but every once in a while he becomes one of the top doctors in the world, with almost like everything he touches with like a will to make people better seems to work. Like it's not
And-
that it just makes them better, but like, I mean, he still does the surgeries or he still does the treatments, but they always just seem to have a the healing touch to them.
And in a little bit of extra hallmark, the children know that if you bring their Santa letters to him, they will definitely be delivered. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for this episode of Wait, It Gets Better. See, we can make a cute story. If you liked this episode and the episode before it, just let me know at waititgetsbettercast@gmail.com or @getsbettercast on Twitter. If you didn't like this episode, if you think Santa Claus doesn't exist, I would say just wait. It gets better.